And welcome back. Today we are going to talk about applying chalk pastels onto the pastel paper that we're going to use for our projects. So with pastels, the way that we're going to work with them, we're going to be working with a range of values of a specific color. So we've got a black, we've got kind of a turquoise, we've got a green, we've got a light green, and then we've got a white. So this is going to give us a full range of values from dark to light. Now, before we start with the actual project, we are going to kind of do a practice here, and we're going to do a sphere. Now, when we do this, we're going to work with white colored pencil and just to kind of draw out what it is we're going to do. And we're going to do this with our actual projects too. So you can see I've got a white circle drawn on here, and that's what we're going to work with, kind of the way that we've done with the sphere project in the past. So depending on how you want your project to look, kind of depends on how your materials are going to go down on the page. If you want something that is a little more blended and smoothed out, that's how I'm going to show you how to do it here. If you want something that is a little more impressionist, to where you're using more of the dots like this, you're going to layer those marks over the top of each other, and that's how you're going to end up with that look, which is its own, looks good in its own right. It takes a little bit more time, but that's okay. So we're going to come in here with this lighter green, kind of up top where my highlight is going to be, and we're going to work some of that through here. And ultimately, my highlight, I'm going to use the white pastel, but I'm just getting a layer of these colors put down first, just so that way I kind of have a little bit of a base to work with. And this is my middle value, so I can come in here and get this laid in here pretty good. Now you can see I've got a lot of the extra buildup of the dust from the material coming off. That's fine. You can leave that there for now. I know a lot of people like to get that out of there, almost immediately. You don't have to. That's good pastel. It's still material. So depending on how you blend these together, that material will actually come into play and help you put a little bit more down on the page. Now, just like with regular pencils or colored pencils, you're going to build up values by layering your materials on top of each other. Now, a lot of times we want to kind of save black for the very last thing, because it is very overpowering, and it can go a little bit, goes a long way. So we don't want to get that in there too quickly, because then it can kind of, I don't want to say it can kind of contaminate the rest of the colors and make it to where it kind of overpowers the rest. So we're going to bring this in, kind of build this up. So you can kind of see I've got my colors in here. I've got a lot of excess, which is fine, like I said. So now you can use a blending stump for pastels, because generally you're not working with a lot of detail. And if you are working with detail, you're generally working larger or more zoomed in. So you can get away with this, but this is the one thing where I'm okay with you using your fingers to blend. You can see that I've already got it on my fingers here, and you kind of want to be mindful about how you go about this, because you don't want to use the same finger for everything. So I'm going to start out with my index finger down here at the bottom, and I'm going to use those extra materials that are there to kind of fill in all the little gaps where I didn't get with the actual pastel. So as I'm coming up, I'm getting into the lighter areas. I'm going to switch fingers, so that way I have a dark and I have a medium. And then when we come up here into the light, switch fingers again and get that worked out. Get all of this material worked into the page. Now, one of the things that you have to think about with the overall look of your image is the color of the paper that you use behind it. Because generally with pastels, you don't use a white paper. You can. There is white pastel paper, but generally you're going to have something that has a tone of some sort. So whether it's kind of a gray like this, or a brown, or a gray, or a black, you have to take those things into consideration, because, you know, say I have this light green here, so I'm going to slide this off. It is going to look different on this black than it is on this gray versus the brown versus the gray that we're working with here. So just as you're working with it, you can kind of tell that it's going to be a little darker, and just the color itself is going to change as you work with it. So just kind of take that into consideration. You want to color a paper that's going to be kind of consistent with the colors that you're working with, and it's going to complement it. So if you're working with lighter colors, you want a lighter page. If you're working with darker colors, you can get away with a darker page. So we'll get that off to the side. Now, with pastels, you don't want to blow the pastel dust, because it gets up into the air and then you're going to breathe it. So you take it over to the garbage can and just tap it like this. Okay, so I can see I've got a pretty straight line across here, and I want that straight line to go away. So we're going to come in and just kind of blend a little bit, and now I can come in on the very bottom of this, put just a little tiny bit. You can see how much darker that is, and then you can take this black and get that up into the rest of it. Come in with some turquoise again. So we're going to do a sphere like this to practice, kind of get used to it. So if you want to have everything smoothed out like this, you can do that. Again, if you want to have a sphere where you're using marks like you would in Impressionism, and kind of leave your marks in like that, you can. It takes a little bit more to get the values done in right, and you can always have it smoothed out underneath and then go in and kind of put more marks over the top of it. You can, like with anything, you can build layers up with this, and if you build enough layers up, it's going to look smoothed out anyway. So it might not be a bad idea just to go that route, because with chalk pastels, you know, they tend to blend a little more than with oil pastels. So that might be a route that you want to take. All right, so that's it for this, and then stay tuned for the other project.